Hey everyone, to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make another version of Galatopita, which is a creamy milk pie that's very similar to Greek custard pie, except it just has a little bit of a different consistency to it. This has a caramelized baklava nut mixture in between the bottom crust layers. I've also added a little bit of a festive twist by adding a crinkle phyllo topping to the top of the pie. The original version of this recipe does not have a topping, but I just added it to make it a little bit more pretty. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to begin with the nut mixture. It's almost going to give it like a baklava type taste, except the nuts are going to end up getting caramelized between the phyllo layers, and it's going to make it extra crispy. So to make the nut mixture, we're going to take a cup of ground walnuts and put them in a food processor, pulse them until they're pretty finely chopped, and then I'll go in and add 1 heaping teaspoon of ground cinnamon and 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, and just pulse that a little bit more so everything is incorporated. And then the nut mixture is ready. We're just going to set that aside. Now we'll make the custard. So in a saucepan, I'm going to add 4 cups of whole milk, and then we need a cup of granulated sugar for the custard. I'll only add half of it to the milk and put it on the stove top so that way it can heat up. The sugar in the milk is just going to keep the milk from sticking to the bottom of the saucepan. That's a nice pastry chef trick that I learned a long time ago that I use every time I make custard now, and it works perfectly. The remaining sugar is going to go in a pitcher along with 2 whole eggs and 1 egg yolk, a tablespoon of cornstarch, and half a cup or 95 grams of fine semolina flour. Whisk that all together until it's smooth and incorporated. And then once the milk is steaming hot, we're going to pour it a little bit at a time while continuously mixing the egg mixture. This is going to temper the eggs and help them stay nice and creamy once they go back into the saucepan. So everything is going to go back into the saucepan and over the heat, and do not step away at this point, otherwise everything will burn. So keep whisking until the mixture comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you'll see that it'll thicken considerably. Turn the heat off and stir in 1 to 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract and 2 tablespoons of cold unsalted butter. Whisk that all up until the butter melts into the custard, and then take it off of the heat. Now we will assemble the pie. So you're going to need number 4 phyllo for this. I had number 7, which is a little bit thicker, and I'll end up using the whole pack. You'll need about 6 layers of phyllo for the bottom crust and then 4 for the top. So that's how many you'll need. If you're using number 4, you'll have plenty left over, but I'm going to end up using this whole pack because the phyllo is thicker. I have 4 ounces of unsalted butter. I'll put it in a little bowl with the wrapper on top, and I'll melt the butter in the microwave. I like to keep the wrapper on top to keep the butter from popping in the microwave and making a mess in there. And then I just use the wrapper to grease the pan. So I have a 10-inch round deep dish pie pan here. This is just a ceramic pie pan. I'm just going to grease the inside really well using the butter wrapper, and then now we can assemble everything all together. So take 1 sheet of phyllo at a time and put it into the pan, drizzle a little bit of butter over it, and then take 1 to 2 heaping tablespoons of the nut mixture and sprinkle it over the top of each layer. Once you have 6 layers, then the top layer doesn't get any nut mixture, so make sure you finish all the nuts while you're layering everything all together. Pour the custard onto the top layer and brush the phyllo that's hanging outside of the pan with melted butter. Gather the phyllo and roll it to create a rustic crust, and you could brush some more butter over it. And then we're going to take 4 sheets of phyllo, brush each one or just drizzle each one with some butter. And then we're going to sprinkle a little bit of salt over each layer and just gather it up to form like an accordion type of decoration. If you want to, you can make rosettes, like large rosettes, but the accordion is just going to be guaranteed to fit over the top of the pie. These are all going to go on top of the custard, and just kind of tuck them in wherever they need to be tucked. Any leftover butter can be brushed over the top of the phyllo and over the crust. And this is going to go into my oven. It's been preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It'll bake on the center rack for about 45 to 50 minutes, or until it's beautifully golden on top. As soon as it comes out of the oven, you can sprinkle it with a generous amount of powdered sugar and then set it aside to cool to room temperature. And there you have it. My Galatopita is ready, and it has a beautiful crinkle top that'll make it perfect for your holiday celebrations. I cannot wait to give this a taste. You want to hear how crispy it is? There's a really generous layer of that walnut cinnamon layer on the bottom of the crust. So good. Perfection. So the difference between this and a Galatopita, which is a custard pie, it doesn't have the syrup. And also the Greek custard pie doesn't have the nut layer on the bottom, which in my opinion elevates it and makes it so much better because those nuts got a little bit crispy from the sugar that melted in between the layers. They got a little bit crunchy, and the cinnamon in there gives it a little bit of a spicy kick. So good. The custard, of course, is just delicious. And it's a semolina custard. That is my favorite and just takes me back to my childhood. I think you guys are gonna love this one. If you want to drizzle some honey over it when it comes out of the oven, just to give a little bit of moisture to the top crust, you can do that. Maybe sprinkle some cinnamon on top as well. You can print this recipe out on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes,